G'day, this is Mr. Thompson. I am going to show you how to put your data from your solar panel experiment, that's this data here that you have filled in on your worksheet, how to put that into a spreadsheet so that it looks like this. So we'll have all the data, we'll have some calculations, average voltage, average power, both average power in watts, average power in milliwatts, and also this cool graph here which shows you how the angle of a solar cell affects its power. Where we've got milliwatts up the side here on the vertical axis and the angle of the solar cell across here on the horizontal axis. Okay, let's get started. So here we have Microsoft Excel and a blank worksheet. And the first thing I'm going to do is just put a title at the top. How important is the angle of a solar cell? Question mark. Okay, let's make that bold and increase the size of the font a bit. There we go. So we've got a nice, good title. Now I'm going to start up the top in cell B2. Leave a little bit of space. Okay, so the first column we want to put in place is angle. Angle in degrees from horizontal. Now that's all very messy. We'll fix that up later. But that's our first column. Now I'm going to come down here to cell C4 and put in here measurement 1, measurement 2. Enter. I'm using my arrow keys to move from cell to cell. Measurement 3, measurement 1, measurement 2, measurement 3. Now that doesn't all fit yet, but so let's fix that now. Actually, what I want on the top here, yeah, let's fix that now. Okay, I'm going to grab the column up here, so between B and C, I'm going to grab this column here, left click my mouse button, drag across and release my mouse button because that's about how big I want that column to be. Now with that cell selected, what I'm going to do is click on alignment. So if I click on this little tab here down the bottom of alignment, it'll give me a bunch of options, and one of the options I've got is wrap text. I'm going to click on that, wrap text. There we go, angle, degrees from horizontal. You can see it's increased the size of the row, but it's meant all my text fits into one box. Very good. Okay, now I'm not going to do these ones here. I'm just going to grab the corner, the edge of that column there, and move it across. Do the same here. Move that a little bit further, and the same here. Move that a little bit further. There we go. So I've got measurement 1, measurement 2, measurement 3. Now, just like the table in my worksheet, what I'd like to do is I'd like those 3 cells there to just be one cell, so I can write voltage in there. So I'm going to click this little button here, which says merge and center. And what that'll do is that'll merge those 3 cells into one cell, and I can type voltage in there. Okay, that's good. All right, so this looks now a little bit like our worksheet. Now, actually, a couple more things I'm going to do just to make it a little bit neater. See how my voltage is right down the bottom of the cell? I'd rather have it in the middle. So if I come up here, you can see here I can put the text right up the top, or in the middle, or down the bottom. In the middle looks good. Okay. Over here, over here, I'd like to merge those 2 cells there as well. So if I grab those 2 there and merge and center again, that'll merge those 2 cells into one. And again, my text is down the bottom, so I'm going to click this button up here, put the text in the middle. Okay, one more thing I'm going to do is just put some borders around everything. So I'm going to select all of those, and click on my little borders box here, and I'd like all borders. So let's see what that looks like, all borders. Okay, that's a good start. So now I'm ready to enter my data. So now this is just a bit of a laborious job. I'm going to start with 0 degrees there, 10 degrees there, 20 degrees there. Actually, there's a bit of a shortcut I can do now because that's going 0, 10, 20 in a sequence like that. Excel's smart enough to work out a sequence and continue it. So what I'm going to do, if I click there, hold my mouse button down and drag and select those 3 cells, if I grab this little box down in the corner here and I drag, so click and hold the mouse and drag it down, you can see how Excel is worked out that it goes 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, I want to go to 90 degrees. Release, and Excel has continued that pattern in there. So that saved me typing all those in. All right, now there's no shortcut here when I'm typing my data in, I've just got to type it in. So let's do that. 2.88, enter. So every time I put in my number, I'm just hitting enter and it goes down to the next cell. 3.42, enter, 3. Okay, now that looks pretty good, except look at this one here. This 3.6. I actually typed in 3.60, but it's only put 3.6. It's sort of automatically dropped the 0. I want Excel to use 2 decimal places because that's what I typed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of those cells and I'm going to, up here with my number formatting, I'm going to click on this little box here. So that I get more options. So that's number. So this little box here pops up here. I'm going to say this is a number. So what kind of number is it? I'm just going to say it's a number, and I want 2 decimal places. So click OK there. Now you can see all of those cells, all of those values are formatted with 2 decimal places, including my 3.6 is now 3.60. Okay, let's do the same with columns 2 and 3. 2.77. Okay, I bet you wish you could do it as fast as I can. Okay, now actually what I want to do is I want to format these cells and I want to make them also, let's make them numbers with 2 decimal places. Very good. Okay, that's nice. We've got our data entered. Now you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to select all those and put borders around them again. Let's do that. Okay, there's our data. Time to do some calculations now. Okay, now one thing that Excel is very good at is doing calculations for you, making calculations a lot quicker than they would be by hand. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to make a few different calculations based on my measurements. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to calculate the, well, let's call it the average voltage. So I'd like to calculate the average voltage of all of these 3 measurements. So 2.88, 2.77, 2.79. So if I was going to do this with my pen and paper, I would get out my calculator and I'd go 2.88 plus 2.77 plus 2.79. So I'd add these 3 up and then I'd divide them by 3. Now it's easier than that in Excel. All I have to do is press, come to this cell here, the cell that I want my average to be in. I'm going to click equals or press equals. Now whenever I start an entry in Microsoft Excel with equals, it means I'm telling Excel I'm going to give you a formula and I want you to do some calculations for me. So equals, I'm going to say equals average. I'm going to type average and then I'm going to type open brackets. Average. Now average of what? So I'm just going to click on my first cell that I want to calculate an average of, and I'm going to hold my mouse key down, my mouse button down, and I'm going to drag across here. So now my 3 cells that I want to average have been selected, and you can see in here Excel has called that C5 colon E5. In other words, starting with the cell C5, going all the way to the cell E5, and everything in between, take the average of that. Close my brackets by pressing close brackets and then enter, and just like that it's created the average for me. Now let me show you something even cooler. Now that we've got that average calculated, I want to do that same formula all the way down. So for each of these rows I want to calculate the average. So what I can do, if I come up here, if I grab the little handle, the little square at the bottom of this cell, click it with the mouse, holding the mouse button down, I drag it all the way down. Very good. Now, so what Excel has done is it's used that same formula for each cell. And you can see if I come to any of these cells, if I want to see the formula inside the cell, I can either look at the bar up here, or even better, when I click on the cell, I can press the F2 button, F2, and it shows me visually. It shows me average, and you can see the C9 to E9 is in blue, and it shows me average of which cells there. It shows me it's taking the average of those cells there. So Excel has been very smart. It's used that same formula all the way down, so each cell here is the average of that whole row in front of it. Very good. Okay, now that doesn't look quite neat. I want to make that row longer. Let me show you another trick here. If I double click on this, see this, that's my F column, that's my G column. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to move this column out. If I double click on this line, then Excel automatically widens the column just wide enough to fit my widest text. So that's exactly what I want to do. Very nice. Okay, let's put in another calculation. So I've got average voltage. Now I want to calculate power. So average power in watts. So now you may recall from your worksheet, if you got that far, that power equals V squared divided by R. V squared divided by R. So V is going to be our average voltage. We're going to use our average voltage divided by R. Well, R is 27 ohms because you used a 27 ohm resistor. Let's put a formula in to calculate that. So instead of using a calculator and typing in 2.81 squared divided by 27 equals, we'll tell Excel to do a formula. So equals, telling Excel you're going to do some calculations for me. Okay, V squared. So let's click on that. That's our V. That's our average voltage is V squared. All right. The way we type squared in Excel is we use this caret button. So the caret button is if you press Shift and 6, it puts in this little caret character. What that means is, actually I'm then going to follow up by 2. So caret 2 actually means squared. So think of the caret as a little arrow. That means we're going to put the 2 up the top like a squared symbol. Okay, so squared, and then we're going to say divide all that by 27 and then hit enter. Okay, so that is calculated V squared divided by 27. V squared divided by 27. Alright, now it's given us too many decimal places. I don't want that many decimal places, so again I'm going to use my number formatting tool. Click on this button here, say I want a number and I want 2 decimal places. I've been working with 2 decimal places. I'll keep working with 2 decimal places. Let's do that. Okay. So now it's rounded that number off to 29. Or not to 29, to 0.29. Okay, now that was a fair bit of work, and I've got to do that same formula all the way down here, which could be manual, which could be painful if I have to type it in, but as you've probably guessed, I don't have to type it in. I can do my little autofill trick. So I'll click on the first cell and I'm going to click on this little handle down the bottom here, that little square, drag, and now, there we go, I've got the average power. So the average power again, if I pick one of them, press F2, I can see that for the average power for this cell, it's used the voltage of the cell next to it. So that voltage squared divided by 27. Okay, so that saved me a lot of calculations by hand. Now, one more thing I'd like to do. 0.29 watts is actually 290 milliwatts. I'd rather use milliwatts. So let's do that. Okay, again, let's double click here, up here to adjust the column length. Good, so that was easy. Come over here, my final heading, average power, this time, in brackets, in small m, big W, milliwatts. Okay, so how do I convert watts to milliwatts? Okay, we just multiply by 1,000. So again, I'm going to use a formula for that. I'm going to say equals 29, or 0.29, that cell there, whatever's in that cell, times, so for times I'm going to use asterisk, so that's pressing Shift and the 8 key, that's our times symbol in Microsoft Excel, times 1,000, enter. Okay. Again, look at that, I don't want all those decimal places. In fact, I don't want any decimal places. I just want, let me click up here, and I'm going to say number, but this time I want 0 decimal places. I just want an absolute number of milliwatts. Okay, and again, instead of typing that in all the way down here, I'm going to drag, I'm going to use autofill, hold that little box there, drag it down, There, my calculation's done. Okay, again, I'm going to double click here, and I'm just going to make this a bit nicer. Let's, okay, I want all of these are, actually that there, that's a voltage, isn't it? So let me just fix this. What I should do is I'll click on merge and center again. So remember we merged and centered those 3 cells to make them into one. So I'll click on merge and center again, and that undoes my merge and center. So now I've just got voltage over here. But now I want to merge all of those 4 cells because I want voltage, because that measurement 1, that measurement 2, that measurement 3, and the average voltage, they're all volts, but they're all voltage. So I want that voltage heading to be across all of those 4 columns. So now merge and center again, and we've got voltage. And in fact, here's what I also should do. If I click up here, my voltage, I forgot to put my units in volts. Close my brackets, enter. Okay, very good. These ones here, I want a heading over those ones which says power, because both of those are power. Power. I don't want units there because my units are both already down here. Okay. Okay, that text is too low, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click this button here to put that text in the middle. And again, I haven't put I want borders around everything, so I'm going to select my whole table again, like that, and add some borders. Where are my borders? Over here. So all borders, like that. Yeah, one more thing, I just think it looks, now that I've put all my data in, I'd rather have my data centered. So here, I'm going to click on, took me a couple of clicks, but I'm going to click on this center justify button up here. And now all my data is nicely laid out and centered. One more thing I'm going to do, this is probably a little bit over the top, but let's do it just to make it easier to read. I'm going to use some color, so I'm going to put blue there for my angle. I'm going to put voltage. Let's use, it's too bright. I'm going to choose a color for my voltage. I'm going to choose another color here for my power. There we go, just so it's easy on the eye, so I can see, and because they're headings, I'm going to bold those. So I'm going to select all those and click on the bold button. They're all bold. Okay, that is starting to look pretty good. Okay, so I've got my data in my table. I've got it formatted, looks good. I now need to put in a graph. So let's have a look at how to do that. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about which data do I want to graph. What I'd like to graph is I'd like to graph the angle on one axis, and I'd like to put my power in millivolts in another axis. So in other words, what I want to see in my graph is I want to see, as I vary the angle of my solar cell, how does that affect my power? How does that affect the power that the solar cell puts out? So they're the two columns of data that I want to base my graph on. So let's select them. So I'm going to click on the first cell here, click and hold my mouse button and drag all the way down to the bottom. So that's all selected. Now, if I come over this side and I press my control key, so I'm going to press and hold the control key on the keyboard, and then I'm going to, still holding my control key down, I'm going to click and drag this column here, release my mouse key, release the control key. Now I've got all the data that I want in my graph selected. Okay, so now I need to insert a graph. So if I come over here to insert, because I want to insert a graph, and what kind of graph? This is pretty cool actually. It's got recommended charts. So I'm going to click on recommended charts, and Excel shows me what kind of graphs would be useful. A column graph, a bar graph, a line graph or a scatter plot, as Excel calls it, and a line graph here. I'm going to use a scatter plot, and I would recommend, if you're graphing numerical data on 2 axes in Excel, that you always choose a scatter plot. Don't choose a line graph. There's a subtle difference. You can talk to your teacher about that. I won't explain that now, but scatter plot is the one you want to use. Okay, so I'm going to choose scatter plot. So if I click OK, there we go, and there we go. So there's a scatter plot. Now that's we have to tidy that up a bit, but that already looks pretty good. So I'm just going to grab the chart, and I'm going to the graph, and I'm going to bring it across over here, and I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. There we go. So it looks like that. Okay, so I just grabbed that little handle down the bottom and dragged it, and made it bigger or smaller, so I can I can change the size however I like. Okay, so what do we need on our graph? Now, chart title, that's not very useful. Let's fix that. So if I double click on the title, then I can select that title with my mouse and type in something else. So what will I type? I'll type, how does the angle of a solar cell affect its power? Okay, and the grammar Nazis out there might tell me that shouldn't be a capital. Okay, just the major words need to be a capital. Okay, good. And I need a question mark. So let's come over here. Question mark. That's a pretty good title. Now the other thing we tell you is whenever you do a graph, you need to have axis titles. So how do I put those in? If I click on the graph, you can see this little plus button here. That means I want to add some more chart elements. So I click on the plus. I want axis titles. Okay, so I check that box in there, and you can see it's put some axis titles in for me. Now they're not very useful, but let me type some useful stuff in there. So I'm using my arrow keys now, and I'm going to select all of that, and I'm going to type over the top of it. So what have we got here? On this horizontal axis, I have power. So power, in fact, let's be a bit more descriptive. Power output of the solar cell in, open brackets, milliwatts, close brackets. So small m, big W. Power output in milliwatts. Okay, I'll click somewhere else. Now down here, axis title. So this one here, let me click in there, click a couple of times, and then I can use my arrow keys again, and I can type in, what do I want there? Angle of solar cell, brackets, degrees from horizontal, close brackets. Okay, actually not enter, let me backspace that and click somewhere else. Okay, that looks good. So I've got power output on this side in milliwatts, angle of solar cell, degrees from horizontal in this side. Okay, what else can I do to fix this up? You know what? This 100 over here looks clumsy. I just really want 0 to 90. So what I'm going to do, if I click on those numbers, and then right click and go format axis. So what happens over here is on this side of the screen now, it's popped up some options for me. Now you'll see for this axis it's got a minimum of 0 and it's got a maximum of 100, which is automatic. I'd rather have a maximum of 90. I don't need that 100. That just looks clumsy to me because I didn't take data up to 100 degrees. I only took data up to 90. So let's get rid of 100 there, and let's put in 90. Enter. There we go. And we come back to our graph here. Let me click somewhere else so I can see it all nicely. Okay, so now I've got from 0 to 90. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we're pretty much done. There's only one more thing. Now this is probably being a little bit pedantic. I like to do this with my spreadsheets. These cells here are calculated cells. Yeah, they've got formulas in them. These cells here are cells that you manually enter data into. So I like to, let's just select all of those calculated cells there, and I'm going to format those with a color. Let's choose that color there, and these ones here, I'm going to format those with a color. Which color did we use for power? Was it that one there? Good. I like to do that just so that it's easy for me to see which cells I actually entered data into and which cells are cells that Excel has calculated for me. Okay, let me show you one more thing before we're finished. How powerful the spreadsheet is. Now, if you had done all these calculations by hand and then all of a sudden you realized, you know what, this entry here, this entry back here was wrong. It wasn't 3.89, it actually should have been 3.79, but I typed it in wrongly. Now, if you'd done this all by hand, then if we had to do 3.70, let's say it was 3.70, I would have to then recalculate my average, then recalculate my average power, then recalculate my power in milliwatts, and then I'd have to change stuff on my graph, and it would be painful. Take a long time. But with a spreadsheet, the beauty of a spreadsheet is it'll automatically recalculate everything for you. So let's say this cell here was 3.70. Okay, so I'm just going to type in 3.70 there. Now, I haven't pressed enter yet. when I do watch the average voltage cell and the average power cell. When I press enter, did you see that? It automatically adjusted all those cells, and it automatically adjusted the graph for me. When I fix my mistakes, it automatically does those recalculations. So much easier than doing it by hand. That is the power of a spreadsheet. So now we are done. I hope this little video has been helpful for you.